It's that win-lose kind of thinking, right?
Yeah.
And we were raised this way. I mean, we grew up this way. Is this your nose? Yes, right? Is this your chin? No, 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 that's wrong. So we're taught that way all the way up the ladder, all the way to leadership.
Leaders get in trouble like Hector when he only is seeing it as an either or he cares so much about the performance that he puts the people on the back burner. And that's what gets us in trouble, because it's not a problem you can solve. You need both performance and you need people.
Meet Hector. The room goes silent after he says it. So what are we going to do about that? One of his salespeople were just complaining that operations is too slow and customers are getting frustrated. Hector didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the table, but everyone heard what he was saying underneath it. Stop bringing me problems. Bring me solutions. His arms are crossed, staring at a team that looks a lot smaller than they did just a few minutes ago. As general manager of a wholesale building materials company, Hector understands that success comes in follow-through. His managers need to hold people accountable rather than babysit excuses. But what he's finding is that the harder he pushes, the quieter the room gets. His salespeople complain that operations isn't supporting them. His managers avoid hard conversations and deadlines slip. And Hector's starting to wonder if he's part of the problem, as if he has to choose between caring for his people or caring about performance. At home, when he's with his wife and 4 kids, he is a completely different person. He's that teddy bear that no one at work gets to see. And when it comes to his work, Hector wants to build a culture where there's trust, where people aren't afraid to speak up, and everybody cares about winning. Today, I'm speaking with Michelle Troseth and Tracy Christopherson, co-founders of Missing Logic, co-authors of Polarity Intelligence, and hosts of the podcast Burnout Proof Leadership. Michelle and Tracy help leaders to move beyond either-or thinking and navigate tension and competing priorities with more wisdom and clarity. And I look forward to hearing how they would help someone like Hector lead both people and performance without feeling a need to have to choose between them. My name is Jay Abbasi, and welcome to Unstuck. Real people, real stories, real solutions. While the details are changed to protect anonymity, what you just heard is based on a true story of challenges that come up in the real world. And we discuss how to navigate these environments with practical tips to help you get unstuck and build a more fulfilling, impactful, and balanced life and career. Michelle, Tracy, I am curious to hear the story of how you two met, because I know how close you are, and I know how much you do so much work together. But what's the story? How did you two meet and hit it off?
Well, I'll start. This is Tracy. So Michelle and I we got employed by the same organization at the same time. And we went to this employee orientation. Now, it was in a huge auditorium, so there were numerous people orienting. And they did this exercise of stand up and shake the hand of the person behind you. And that was me. And that was over 40 years ago. So we like to say we've been shaking hands ever since.
Cool.
Ever since. Yeah.
Ever since.
And the other thing we like to share is that we're also best friends, and our husbands are best friends as well. And we're opposites. So it's really important to know that about Tracy. And we didn't know that. We didn't know that in the very beginning. We actually discovered that more when we opened up our business and started our company, Missing Logic.
Yep.
So then it became very obvious how opposite we are. We like to say we're a walking polarity, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah. So there is always that concern that people who are so different, they clash. And it's not that way from what I understand about how you two work together. You don't see it that way. Talk to me about how the fact that you are so different actually works.
Well, I think we are driven by the same vision. We definitely are centered on shared purpose, what really matters the most to us. And we want to bring something in common to the world. And so that has always kept us united. And we have always valued our relationship. And so we knew going into the work that we do together, our business, that the friendship was a priority for us. And so you just create that foundation and you keep it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it looks really good, but it's been hard. It's not been a walk in the park. So I don't want people to think, oh, we're just unicorns and this is all flowers and wine and beaches and whatever, right? Because it's not.
Yeah.
we've
Well,
had our
it's
we've had
yeah,
our
go
ups
ahead.
and
Like,
downs, right? We've had
Yes,
some
yeah.
we
really
have.
hard times, some really tense times. But what we recognize is that we are a polarity, and that's one of our specialties. That's what makes us unique in the work that we do, meaning just that we are, our perspectives are equally important. One's not more important than the other, and we need both of them in order to actually reach that shared purpose, to achieve our goals. We actually complement each other.
Hmm.
We just sit on opposite poles when it comes
Mm,
to our perspectives and our points of view and almost everything.
yeah.
And so before we realized that, um, there was a lot of tension, which is natural in a polarity. You're going to have tension between the two poles, right? You got a positive pole, just like anything, right? You got a positive, negative pole.
Hmm.
There's going to be an energy force between the two. And we just had to learn over time, using and applying our own principles, how to leverage those differences and really make them our superpower. So we really
Yeah.
were very intentional and focused on that.
Yeah. So tell me the differences. So maybe Tracy, you can start. Like what is it that you think is different between you and your approach and the way you
Oh,
see
yeah.
things and how Michelle sees
Sure,
it?
sure. Well,
Yeah.
I am very much masculine energy, very driven, very much about productivity, structure, processes, linear thinking. And Michelle is more relational. She's more
Hmm.
big picture. She's more, let's just go with the flow, a lot of flexibility. And so that's how we really hold opposite poles. Now, the only one that we're the same is in communication. And we both tend to be very diplomatic, which
Mm,
initially caused some challenges for us. So when we both held the same pole, the same perspective, and acted in the same way, we weren't bringing the hard truths or our, deeper feelings into the conversations that we needed to have. So we were being too diplomatic with each other and not candid enough to overcome some of the challenges we were facing or some of the tension we were experiencing.
I get it. So the thing that is more the same was problematic, not the
Yes,
things that were so different.
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Wow. That's fascinating because I would imagine people who are in conflict with others, and let's say in the workplace, it's because they're like, well, that person's just so different than me. So, how do you reconcile that? How do you reconcile the sense that people often seek out sameness, like people who are like them, and they actually need the other side in
Yes.
Yeah.
order to have success. So how do you reconcile? How do you encourage people to reconcile that?
Well, you have to really recognize that you'll fail over time if you aren't exercising the other perspective. And so the beauty of it is you create the roles within the organization or whatever your situation is. Maybe it's a dyad partner that you work with very closely. in that they're going to do the things that more align with their preference pool, that come to them more naturally, and the other person focuses on their strengths or their preferences. And then you work them together, though. You're always taking action, you're working them together, because if you're all relationships and connections and like me, this business would not be around by now, I'll tell you that. So it's like you need both. We need Tracy's structure and her linear thinking and her operation skills. And we need the ability to connect with people and to look at the network that we're trying to create and reaching out to customers. And so you need both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just about recognizing we think in we tend to think that, if I'm right, you're wrong. If this is the best way, right, that's the wrong way. We think in that kind of, pattern of either or. And just, you have to be open. So we just
Mhm.
encourage people. You always want to be open because people have had experiences you haven't had. Therefore, they have a knowledge and a wisdom that you don't have. And if you're not tapping into that, then there you have a blind spot. You're missing out on things that could actually make your leadership better, make your life better, make your business better. But if you're just so unipolar in your thinking, there's so much you're not aware of, which is
Mm.
really becomes a deficit to you. Not It's not an advantage to drive your organization or your company or your team based on just your preferences. It actually becomes a deficit over time, and it will
Yeah.
it will lead you to failure for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a pattern people fall down quite a bit because there's two things they're lacking. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. I think the two things that I see people lacking, one is awareness, and you just use that word, Tracy,
Mhm.
awareness. And I think the other one is humility. It's
Mhm.
humility. I mean, people are just maybe not consciously, but subconsciously kind of arrogant to think my way is the only way, and
Mhm.
they are rigid in even considering other perspectives. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that is spot on. That's something that we see as well. And so you have to be aware of what your preferences are and what your style is. And you have to learn from other people, right? So to gain humility, it's not to be overconfident, but to be willing to ask questions, to be curious when you're with another person so that you really can learn from them. That's a key strategy, I think, that really helps people be more humble, is to lean more in inquiry and listening to other people rather than, feeling like I always have all the answers and always being the one to share their perspective only.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's driven by fear too, Jay. We hang on to our perspective. It's because we have expertise in it. It's what we know. There's a level of certainty around it. And we fear other perspectives because we feel like we have to choose. I can't have what I want and value if I turn my attention and give you the ability to have what you want and what you value, especially if it's opposite of what I value. So there's this fear, which makes us hang on tighter and longer. And there's the sense of safety. And when Michelle and I were experiencing a lot of tension, right? Some of it's like right down to your nervous system, and regulating that, right? Because anything different than what you want, anything that triggers that fear in you, if we do this, then we're going to lose that. Then that also comes into play. So sometimes you got a lot of layers you got to peel back, right, to understand what is really driving this? What am I so afraid of? What am I concerned about? What do I think is going to happen? And how can we get to the both and of this? How can we have a focus in our business that is on people and relationships and connection, and at the same time be productive and growing and evolving the business and the services or the products that you deliver? So there's a little bit of that at play too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just yesterday, I saw this quote, and I think it's related to what you just said. It was by one of my favorite poets. His name is Khalil Gibran.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, anxiety does not come from thinking about the future, it comes from trying to control it.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we try to, like what you're saying, right? I need to control it for it to go this way.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I need to win, because if I win, then I get what I want. But if you win, then I lose.
I lose. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that win-lose kind of thinking, right?
Yeah.
And we were raised this way. I mean, we grew up this way. Is this your nose? Yes, right? Is this your chin? No, no, no. That's wrong. That's not right, right? If A is right and B is wrong. So we're taught that way all the way up the ladder, all the way to leadership. And we
Yeah.
get promoted because we're great problem solvers. We can find the right solution. And so it's just ingrained in us to think in this either or problem solving, I'm right, you're wrong, dichotomous kind of thinking.
Yeah. And
But it doesn't, it's really most of what we deal with are interdependencies. They're not separate.
yeah. And when we do try to control all the time as a leader, that anxiety you spoke of, it's also the number one cause of stress in leaders across the world, and what causes them burnout. And that's, we don't want to be like that. You don't want people to have to live like that. So I think that's really important too, when you recognize the dynamics of the energy, it's easier to let go and just know where the energy is going and then how you need to shift, but you're never in control of it.
Right. Yeah. I'm a strong advocate for not even using that word control, because we don't have control over much. Yeah, right. Right. Like, it's such an illusion to think that we have control over things. And
Mhm.
it's, for me personally, I felt it to be so much more freeing to just let go of control and instead look at it like this. Instead, I have choice.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
I can choose. I can choose to agree with this or choose not to. I can choose to take this position or that one. And there's a lot more power for me in choice than in control.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up burnout, and it was on my mind because I was reading about your take on work-life balance, and that's a polarity in itself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so many people are seeking that, and I would love to just hear your take on work-life balance. It's talked about everywhere, and everyone's saying they're searching for it. Your work is in polarity, so tell me your thoughts on the idea of work-life balance.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is people don't believe it's possible. And they come at it from a 50-50 mindset. So they think it's not possible at all. And then you'll hear the term work life integration a lot. But it's really not integrating two different things into one big mashup. That doesn't get you balance either. So it's really understanding again how the polarity works, and the way that Tracy and I frame it with the leaders that we coach is it's really the balance of your professional life and your personal life, and and knowing where the attention needs to go in a moment, because things happen, but you can never drop the focus on either one. But not in a 50-50 mindset. And you can plan your week around that concept. You can plan your day. You can plan your month. When you know something busy is coming up, you can make the choice to make different decisions, but you always have both in mind, and you're always making motion on both poles.
Yeah, I think what I would say is it goes back to the energy. There's an energy that separates and binds these two aspects of your life. So when you think of like yin yang, right? There's an
Yeah.
energy, and we look at it like an infinity loop. So the energy is always flowing between your personal life and your professional life. And it's all about balancing that energy to move you towards the highest quality life that you want, right? Your greater purpose. And so, what you need to do, you always have to be taking action to get the outcomes that you want in both areas. But you can't always take all the actions. This is what Michelle's referring to. You might not be able to take every action to get the positive outcomes you want in both aspects of your life. when something comes up that draws your attention towards your business, or something catastrophic happens and draws your attention to your personal life. So that's where you need to decide, okay, what can I do in that other area? What can I do at home while I'm in the middle of this launch to keep things stable, to help me maintain the outcomes that I want? What are the highest priorities I can do to maintain that while I give attention to this other aspect of my life, right? To my business or my organization.
Yeah.
And knowing you've got to be able to be flexible, right? You got to be able to be flexible and flex and be dynamic with that. It's not a static measurement of balance. Like we tend to think balance is just equal, but it's
Yes.
Right.
never equal because life's. Life is always going to be lifing on you all the time, right? And you just don't know if it's going to happen in your business or happen at home. But when you have a strategy and you're very clear on what you want in those aspects of your life, and you have actions, a strategy, an action plan to help you with it, then, and you're taking those actions and monitoring, am I getting what I want from this? Then all you're doing is looking for
Mhm.
warning signs that you've over focused on one and neglected the other, because there's key principles that govern polarities and they're all the same. It doesn't matter what polarity that you're experiencing. Can be the work home, can be productivity and relationships, can be candor and diplomacy. They all work the same. You got to take action to get the outcomes. If you're not taking the actions, you're not going to get the outcomes for both poles. And you got to take them simultaneously. So you can't just focus on one pole, which is what we tend to do, and then swing over and focus on the other one when things get bad. You got to
Yeah.
maintain the action in both and then look for the warning signs, because the warning signs tell you when either your action isn't working or you've over focused in one area and you're neglecting the other. And they all work that way. So once you know how they work, and you know how to leverage this energy, then you can apply it to anything. And I think the fact that people are not successful with it is because they don't really understand the dynamic of it. They don't understand how to leverage that energy and what it takes. And then they don't choose to do it. So you
Yeah.
have to make
Yeah.
those choices.
Yeah. I think there's this it's like a false expectation of what it's supposed to be like.
Yes.
You know, I as you were explaining that, I thought of how it's all seasonal. It's you have a
Mhm.
season where your attention may require more time towards work or more times towards your personal life. And the metaphor that I thought of was, if you were plan, I'm going to spend a day outside and go hiking, and then the weather changed and it started to rain, you wouldn't like stay out in the rain and get really upset and scream and say, no, I was supposed to be outside today. Like, no, you would adapt, right? You'd be, like you
Yes.
said, you'd be flexible, and you realize, you know what, the weather changed, and even though I was supposed to be outside, I'm actually going to do the other thing, which is to go inside and spend
Mhm.
my time there, which is similar to how, okay, I intended to, let's say, put more time towards personal for whatever reason. However, work had this thing. I have to adapt, and I can't be in a state of resistance to that.
Right.
I can't be fighting that.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And you just have
Mhm.
to decide, right? If I have 5 actions that help me maintain my personal life and get the outcomes that I want, the highest quality outcomes for my personal life, what are the 1 or 2 I can keep doing while I give more attention over here? It's not all 5, but what's the biggest one, right? What's the key action that's going to give me the most outcome that I can maintain while I shift over here? And then when the business thing is over, then I can go back and I can get back at doing all of them. But what we tend to do is swing all of our attention one way and completely drop the other. We let go of everything we've been doing, the
Yep.
exercise, the date nights, all the things. We just drop it and we give all our attention over here. Well, you are going to fail 100% of the time when you do that. So
Yep.
when you understand this and you know, I can't do that, I do need to do something. So what is it that I can do to maintain it
Yeah.
while I'm in this situation?
Yep. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's being adaptable. It's being flexible,
Yeah.
and I think with the polarity piece, I'd love to touch on Hector's story and what he's struggling with, because his polarity is, either I'm empathetic and I'm great with people and I care about people, or I'm pushing towards results. And I think that this is a problem that so many leaders are struggling with because they have lack of resources, there's so much uncertainty, and they're like, well, we have to get results. So I have to do that. And I can't let emotions get in the way. Then they feel bad and they're like, wait, no, I have to care about people. And they're caught between this polarity. So talk to me
Yeah.
about if you've seen this before yourself. I'd like to start
Oh,
there. Like, have you seen this
oh,
before?
Oh, yeah.
we recognize Hector right away. Yeah, we have seen it for sure. And the leaders get in trouble like Hector when he only is seeing it as an either or he cares so much about the performance that he in his mind just puts the people on the back burner. And that's what gets us in trouble, because it's not a problem you can solve. You need both performance and you need people. So just like work-life balance, you have to learn how to put it in both places. And it goes back to the first thing that Tracy and I just know makes such a difference is you have to have that polarity mindset. And the very first step of that is being able to differentiate a problem from a polarity. And if this is something Hector's been dealing with for a while, or if you're dealing with any issue for a while, it keeps coming back and back, then it tells you right there, you are dealing with a polarity, and your first job is try to understand exactly which one it is.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
And I
so
think
with,
he feels a
go
lot of
ahead.
tension too because he has a
Yeah.
preference,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? He has a preference. He wants to see the performance. And it's not that he doesn't value at all relationships. He's great at home. He's empathetic. He's got great relationships. But when he
Yeah.
gets into the work environment, there's a different kind of pressure
Yeah.
and a
Mm.
different level of valuing. And so his preference is for the performance. And when you look at what he's starting to experience with his team, he's kind of getting an inkling. My preference is playing a part here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you as are the leader and you have a preference poll and that's where you put your attention, everybody that works for you lives underneath that preference poll, whether it's theirs or not, whether they know there's value on the other poll or not, they live under your direction. You're driving the ship, right? You are the one in control in a lot of cases, and they're just following your lead. Even so, they're being quiet, probably because they know there's something we're missing over here with the relationship pieces.
Yeah. And
And because
there's the fear of speaking up, right? The fear of,
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. The
there
fear
is.
I'm going to be the one who's creating a problem, or I'm the one who's, you know, resisting the leader or fighting with the leader. And
Yeah.
Hector is based on, of course, they always are. It's based on a real person. And one thing about the person of whom it's about is that as an individual contributor, and this is often the case, I think, with leaders, that's how they approach things. It was like, well, I left when I did it, I left my emotions out,
Yeah.
you know, at
Oh yeah.
home. I went and I did the work. I got it done. And why can't everybody do it the way I did?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so what do you say to a leader who operates that way, which is like, well, that's how I did it, and I was really successful. Well,
Yeah.
now they're in a leadership role. What would you say to that person?
Well, I think, like with somebody like Hector, we always start with, tell me about that. Like, what did you really value about that? What was that experience like for you? What did you get from that? Like, what are the outcomes that you think doing it this way you're going to get? Because that's what their value. His value is high for this, right? And it's based on a past experience.
Yeah.
This is how it was for me. It worked really great. We got everything we wanted, right? It was all good. I didn't have any problem with it. And so they expect everybody else has the same experience, but they don't. So we always start with, what is it that you value? And
Mm.
what is it that you're afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
What if people, what if the relationships with the people with their teams, you with your team, what if there was more emphasis on that? What would concern you about that? Because you want to find out, you understand and really honor what is important and valuable about the performance piece and where that comes from. But then you also want to know, what are you worried about? because that's what holds them back and that's what keeps them hanging on to their perspective. They just can't understand that anybody else would have a different perspective than that or a different experience than that. And they're
Yeah.
Yeah.
afraid of it.
Yeah, they can't even begin to see the other perspective until they're very clear on why they have their existing perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And it's always such a great approach because you're starting with something they really care about. So they're not going to get defensive right away. And you learn and you listen. You really listen to what they're saying, and then and then it just opens up the door with, well, what are you worried about, the other, the other perspective, and that's when you understand the fears, but then you can also bring out the positives because it's going to be the opposite of what they're afraid of. So you can kind of just tie that into the conversation, and they're like, oh yeah, now I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call that the unstuck process, Jay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What a great name.
Kind of aligns
Yes.
right with what you're doing here.
So Hector, let's say, begins to see that. Okay, I'm starting to notice that this is what I want from my past experience, and the worries and fears around, well, people will end up dropping the ball, or the people are going to not take their work seriously. The light begins to shine. He starts to see that. Then I guess what would be the way in which he could really integrate or approach his team so that, yes, he's people centered while still being able to focus on performance? In other words, what would be the change in how he would communicate with his team?
I think he would be much more engaged with listening to them. One of the core competencies of Polarity Intelligence is being able to engage in meaningful dialogue. So I think he would very intentionally ask questions, find out what is working for them as a team, what's not, and what really matters to them. Because people, they do amazing things when they really feel they're being listened to, and they know that their leader really cares about them and what matters to them. So I think that would be a key strategy if it's something that he hasn't been doing, to start doing it. And then he would also be very valuable to look at how often he meets with his team members, what are his processes, what kind of infrastructures are in place where people can come together and they can get to know the human side of each other, so it isn't all about performance all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we often have people do, and we call this a room split,
Yeah.
but it's an opportunity for people to acknowledge their preference polls. So for this, Hector might say, okay, everybody, we're going to get up. We're going to do this little exercise. If you prefer performance, like you just kind of naturally lean toward, and neither choice is bad. So you always want to set that, right? Neither choice is bad. But just what would you naturally lean towards? Performance or people? And if your performance, you go on this side of the room. If your people, you go on that side of the room. Right away, visually, people are going to see who prefers which pole. And if Hector's standing alone on the performance pole, it's going to tell him a lot, right? About why his leaders aren't talking, why they're not responding. Or if there's just a few people on that pole, but the majority are on the people side, then he kind of has a sense of where people prefer. And then he can tap into, tell me why you prefer that. Tell me what your experiences have been. Tell me what you value about that. What are the outcomes that you feel you get when we focus on people? And it gives people a chance to bring their voice in a very safe way. And they can, and in the same, explore the same for performance, but it helps them to kind of actually bring out what is valued, what the outcomes are, and what their fears are. Now, what
Mhm.
concerns you over here, you people, what concerns you about the performance, right? And focusing on performance. And it's just a very easy way for people to bring their perspective and for him to get kind of his finger on the pulse of what his team prefers, where they're at, and where their work needs to be. Because if there are more people in the team that prefer to focus on the people aspect, right, that also puts them at risk to fail if they give too much emphasis there. But it
Mm-hmm.
also helps them to see we've got to balance this out and we need to listen to the performance side because it's the
Mhm.
fewer voices, right? And when you're in a leadership team, the louder voice gets heard the most oftentimes. So you got to be real intentional about listening to the smaller, the lower, the less represented voice. Let me say it that way, the less represented voice, because there's wisdom there. There's
Yep.
things there that you don't know. And that can make a big difference. So that's just a very easy way for him to tap into this polarity and what people's perspectives are, and not in a in a very safe way. And that's what he wants. He wants to hear their voice. He wants psychological safety. He wants people to feel safe to bring what they have, what they have to say, and he doesn't want to be the one that is stalling this. Like he's already right. I'm having a negative impact here. Now, the other thing is this is with his leadership team, but there's this polarity is existent and ongoing between the sales and the operations groups.
Right.
That has to be managed with those teams. So the other thing would be to bring them together and make them aware. This is something that's going to have to be leveraged over time because polarities never end. They are ongoing forever. And there may be a problem in the operations group. Maybe they're short staffed. You don't know what's happening there. So, this is an overarching polarity that has to be leveraged, but there might be a problem that actually does need to be solved
Yeah.
in order to bring this back into a better balance. But that's something that he can then him and his leaders can work on with those teams to map that out. What are the benefits of both the sales and right the operations, the fulfillment? And how do we manage this so we're getting the best of both? And how will we know if we're not? So they can create their own, what we call a polarity map, and see it. And then look for those early warning signs so they don't end up in this situation again if it's something that is related to the polarity and not a problem that's bringing them
Mhm.
down.
Yeah. Yeah. I love both exercises. The first one of bringing them together and having them choose,
Yeah.
self-identify, take
Yeah.
inventory of, and then bringing the sales team and the operations team together. What I'm imagining, either Hector or someone listening, sensing is like, okay, so I can use this to then get what I want,
Mhm.
which is not what you're saying, right? Like, it's a caveat. I think it's really important to talk about that nuance because one can hear this, say, okay, I'm going to use this as a means to then get to the result that I really want anyway. That I think could be creating more problems. And there's another approach, which is to really go in with a genuine curiosity.
Yes.
Because it comes
Mhm.
through in your tone, it comes through in everything. Because if you're
Mhm.
going in and you're like, I'm still trying to get what I want, people are going to feel it. What do you think?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think the other thing that is related to this, Jay, is always state your intention. Because if you just, I really appreciate what you're saying. If Hector just walks in a room and says, okay, we're going to do an exercise and people are already feeling the heat,
Yeah.
they're going to go to the side that they're think that they want him to, them to go to. But
Yeah.
so it's creating that safe space. So there's some legwork that's got to be done on the front end, I think, of leaders and stating the intention. It could be the reason I'm having us do this exercise is it's come to my attention that this is actually a polarity. They're both equally important. And I really want a high functioning team, healthy team, great relationships. And this will help us see what all of your preferences tend to be. And so I think that would be really important to how it's set up and to bring the intention to the exercise forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in the long haul, the other elements, the other components in polarity intelligence are meaningful dialogue and healthy relationships. And a leader like Hector needs to set that expectation, that, this is how we are going to be together, including me. If he wants this, he's
Yeah.
got to lead the way and set the guiding principles for this is how we're going to be in relationship with each other, which means we share our intention. We have a shared purpose. Everything is driven towards that shared purpose. We see the capability in each other. Like, right, you kind of bring that out and then you set the expectation. This is how we're going to operate together. And then with the meaningful dialogue, this is how we're going to communicate. And we're going to dive in and not always just try to solve everything, but have open dialogue around what we've learned, what our perspectives are, what experiences we've had, so that we can kind of really kind of like create this, this mutual understanding of what we are experiencing individually and collectively, and then take that and think about how that can help us address the situation that we're facing. But give opportunity, lots of opportunity for people to ask questions, to advocate, to sit in silence with each other, to really
Yeah.
reflect on what people are
Yeah.
saying. We're just such a ping pong kind of like, I say that I can't wait for you to finish talking so I can say what I got to say, right? And this is it's a whole different way for teams to be together. And when you set that container, create that container, then it helps you sit in these tensions easier because you've got that foundation of relationship. You understand how to be in meaningful conversation with each other, not jump to assumptions, really use your inquiry, be curious, and advocate for what you have experienced. It's a whole different culture to lead in. And then it just really prepares you because there are thousands of polarities. Like they're everywhere. And once you start seeing them, you'll feel the tensions and understand what that tension is. But these help you sit in that and leverage them and manage them over time. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, Tracy. And what Michelle, you said before about the intention, I thought about how you have to be vulnerable,
Mhm.
right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
that's something that a leader like Hector could struggle with, to be that vulnerable and to be patient, because he has that pattern, right? Well, I want to get it done. He has to slow down.
yeah.
Hard thing for both of those things for people to do,
Yeah.
right? To be
Yeah.
vulnerable and to slow down and be patient.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why they feel tension around it. This is not who I am. This is not who I operate as every day. So every level, right, requires you to elevate yourself. This isn't about your people elevating. This is about you elevating first, leading the
Mm,
way and, practicing this. And the other thing that we do with leaders that help with this is we have a process called a partnership agreement. And it's not formal partnerships, but that's the type of relationship. This is a partnering relationship. And something Hector can do is to engage each of his leaders in this exercise to talk about, here's what you can expect from me in my role. And here's what I need from you. And how do we keep our communication strong? How do we keep our relationship strong? How do we lead this organization together to achieve the goals that we want to achieve? And it's just like, 6 questions, but each person answers the questions and then you have an open dialogue about it. So it's a safe container for him to practice being vulnerable and to really put out there what his perspective is and to hear a different perspective from somebody else and to be able to say, okay, I will agree to XYZ, right? This is how I'm going to be with you in this relationship. And then it provides some guardrails for them. So if Hector isn't doing what he said he'd do, it gives the other leader the
Yeah.
opportunity to come in and say, hey, this is what we agreed to, but this is not what I'm experiencing. So I need you to help me understand why things have changed.
yeah.
And is there anything I can do to support you? Because sometimes people are just going through bad times outside of their work environment and it impacts who they are inside their environment. So you never know the baggage people are carrying, what's happening right now in their life. He could have all the intention in the world of honoring that relationship and what he said, but there may be something else that is right impacting them. So it's just a way for them to have open conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think I just done call with someone earlier today, and we were talking about assuming positive intent always.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Assume
Mm-hmm.
positive intent. Don't assume the
Yes.
worst. Assume the person's going, well, you hope it's happening, but it could be that something is going on in their life that has nothing to do with you. So don't take it so personally. Instead, seek to understand. And
Yeah.
speaking of that, seeking to understand, if let's say Hector was to, let's say he reached out to both of you and he read your book, he read Polarity Intelligence, and he said, I wanna learn more. And he tells you his story and he tells you what he's going through, and you have a chance to evoke something in him. You want to ask him a question or two to get him to start to see things differently. What would you ask him, and why?
Well, I think I said earlier what I would ask, which is tell me about your experience with this. Tell me about you, Hector. What have you experienced? When have you experienced this before, or what have you experienced in relationship to performance that has made it such a high value for you?
Yeah. And
Because
I
I
probably,
want to know where he's come from.
Mhm.
Where are you coming from? What has informed you? What good and bad experiences have you had? Because that's what informs us and drives our behavior. It implants beliefs in us. It's a lens through which we look through. And if I can't look through the lens he's looking through, then I can't see what he's seeing or understand where his perspectives have been developed. So that's what I would ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably ask him what his why is for wanting high performance and people. I think everyone realizes you can't have a company without people. You're an island, right? So what would be his why? And that really is like the greater purpose that's going to drive this for happening, but have him say it in his own words. Why is this so important to you?
Yeah. Yeah, and then when he says it, and both answers will reveal to him what his values are
Yep.
and what this is really all about. And then from there, he's more open to any bridge to get him from where he is to where he wants
Yes.
to be, right? I love
Yes.
it. I love it.
Exactly.
And Michelle, Tracy, you've both been phenomenal. I want to thank
Mhm.
you. And for all of our audience to learn more about the great work Michelle and Tracy are doing, polarityintelligence.com. That's the website for the book, as well as more information about the work you're both doing, and Burnout Proof Leadership podcast. Incredible podcast.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
yes.
every Friday is an episode on polarity. And I know that you talk about things beyond
Oh, yeah.
that. And I had the great honor of being a guest on the
Mhm.
show, and that was a phenomenal experience. So I encourage everyone to check that out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. June 10th.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Yes,
It's
yes,
been a great
absolutely.
experience. Thank you, Jay. It's been really
Yes.
fun.
Oh, this was a blast. Thank you both again. I appreciate you being on the show, taking time out of your day to chat with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that was a first for me to navigate a conversation with two guests. And I think the three of us really got to some valuable insights and actionable takeaways. I'll do my best to do as I do and synthesize it down for us. The first of three insights: most leadership tensions are polarities, not problems. We often think that we have to fix a problem, when in reality, there might just be a polarity here that we have to be able to address, because polarity isn't going away, it's ongoing. So we have to learn how to leverage both sides simultaneously. The second insight: either or thinking doesn't work. We are trained from a very young age to think what's right and what's wrong. When it comes to leadership, we have to step out of that frame and be able to recognize that two things can have value, and there isn't one that's right and one that's wrong very often. And that takes work to be able to get there. And the third insight: a strong preference of yours will affect your team. So if you have a strong preference of the different priorities, maybe it's you focus much more on performance than people, like in the story, well, it's going to have an effect on everybody else. And it's going to create a counterbalance. And people are going to be oftentimes negatively affected by that. So just understand the kind of influence you have as a leader. When you have a strong preference, it will affect others. actionable takeaways. First of 3, do the room split with your team. So Michelle and Tracy talked about if there are 2 sides, split them up, set the intention, it's a safe space, and allow everyone to hear one another. Create that understanding of both sides, not just for you as a leader, but for everybody else in the room. Second actionable takeaway, use the partnership agreement. So they spoke about how you could sit one-on-one with one of your direct reports and ask a few questions. What are your expectations? What are your needs? And then share your expectations and share some of your needs. And that way there is an agreement that you can always refer back to if you divert, if things go off the rails. And then the third actionable takeaway, look for the warning signs. And this is not just for a team environment, for yourself as well. Are you leaning too heavily on one aspect of your life and therefore creating an imbalance? And if you do, don't just completely drop what it is, just find a way to create more of a balance for yourself. And of course, do the same thing as a leader by recognizing, are you putting too much focus on just one thing? So look for the warning signs early. Be mindful of this. Think about it. Let it be something that's intentional that you're considering day in and day out to avoid falling into focusing too heavily on just one thing. Join us on Friday's episode. I'm going to dive into courage, because what we talked about today, being able to manage both people and performance, requires courage. And what are the traits of a courageous leader? How can you lead people in a way where you don't just make it only about your preferences and the things you want, like ego-fueled leadership, nor are you going to be a leader who has people walk all over them. And this takes courage. And I'm going to guide you through a process of how to cultivate more courage. So if you are a leader who cares about being courageous and you want to be able to lead people in a way where you care about them as human beings and you drive results, then Friday's episode will be for you. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. I am rooting for you.